The fastest type of coding is no coding. And let's talk about that today, shall we? Let us talk about that. I remember when I was at school one time, I must have only been about 15 years old, maybe 16. And I was a really, really good runner, you know. I ran for the UK under-20 athletics team. I just had a lot of energy, you know. And I remember one time we were playing the game of basketball. And the other team had the ball. And I would run over to the guy who's got the ball and he would pass it to his friend. And then I'd run back and I'd go to the friend and then he'd pass it to someone else. And I was running about like a maniac. And the PE teacher at the time, Mr. Cowan, he said to me, he says, look, I know that you're a fast runner, but you're not as fast as the ball. He says, instead of running about like a headless chicken, why don't you make some intelligent decisions and let's talk about positional playing. That is pretty much what speed coding is like. Instead of, that, which I admire, it's a nice thing to look at and it must be good, but instead of doing that, perhaps together we can just make some intelligent decisions. This is not something that, just came to me in the middle of the night. As I've said a gazillion times, I've been a commercial developer since the mid-90s, since 1996. And 3 years ago, a company by the name of Ideal Vehicle Leasing hired me. They wanted me to build an application for their call centre. That, it was a new call centre. I don't even know if the company's still going. But in any event, this was a job that I had done before. I had built a similar thing for a company called First Vehicle Leasing, one of the biggest car leasing companies in Europe. And the first time I built this app, it took me 18 months. And it was a big app, It had over 1 million lines of code. They pretty much had the whole business going through this app. But it was 18 long months. And I remember when this second company got in touch later on, who were friends with the first company, by the way. They were all friends. Everything was cool, But when they said, we would like you to build something for our call centre, I figured, well, I'm not going to do a copy and paste job, right? So, assuming we do it a bit differently, let's not sacrifice our integrity here, and I'll make something up for them. I reckon I can do it in about 3 months. And so, I worked, and I worked, and I worked. 3 months went past like that. I had not made a dent. They started getting really irritated. Who can blame them? And gradually, relations just got worse and worse and worse. Got to the point where whenever I went to meet them, I felt like I was going on to the set of Breaking Bad or something like that. I mean, it really, really started to get kind of heavy, And again, who can blame them? Those poor sinners had been waiting ages and ages and ages for this app, and it just wasn't happening. One day, I got a phone call, and it said, look, you know how you've built as a basic site to get by? Well, somebody just phoned, and it's not working on the BlackBerry. Folks, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. By the way, back then, this is what I looked like, just to show you. I used to wear this. I used to have to wear this. Isn't that unreal? This is how I used to work. I used to have to wear this because I spent so many hours. Look at that perfect hair. Oh, it's perfect. I spent so many hours coding that the screen was giving me this horrible eye strain. And it was miserable. And I remember eventually that job just came to an end. I had to walk. It was the only graceful thing to do. Well, it was disgraceful, actually. Nothing graceful about it. And it was a very, very miserable time. And I remember I was saying, how can this be? I have been a developer since the mid-90s. I've built sites for all sorts of people. I've even done this type of site before. Why was it taking so long? I made myself a promise. I was going to find out why web development was so slow and so difficult. And I was going to either find a solution or just quit the whole industry. And so I went on a 3-month crusade to just lift the lid on the whole web development game. I wanted to look at everything, not just how we build apps, but the management systems and everything, the rewrite culture. Why is it that people rewrite frameworks and re-release them constantly? What's that all about? And what is it we're actually doing? When you're sitting and you're like that for 20 hours a day, like, what is it that we are actually doing? Well, I looked at the whole thing, and you know what I discovered? Turns out there are 19 things that professional web developers do over and over and over again. Because what I discovered was that my time was being spent on things like contact forms, password reset features, internal messaging features, pop-up calendars, basic CRUD file uploading, and all of these problems that had already been solved. That right there is the single biggest mistake that professional developers make. If the only thing you get from this video is stop resolving problems that you've already solved, if that's all you get, congratulations me. Because I have just told you how to be 5 times faster. That one simple tip, stop resolving things that you've already solved, that's going to electrify your productivity. I can assure you it's going to electrify it. But there is more. I'd already mentioned the other issue, right? Another issue that really, really slows web development down is what I call rewrite culture. Why does that happen? Why do people constantly re-release and rewrite these new frameworks? I think it's kind of an epidemic. And look at Angular, the one I was using. What version are they on now? Does anyone even know? I think I stopped counting around about version 9. And every time somebody releases a technology and says, here's the new one, well, if you have to go back to square one again, or even just spend half an hour making it all work, that's half an hour wasted. And by the way, clients do not like it when you phone them up and say, hey man, you know that thing that you paid 5 or 6 figures for? Guess what? Guess what, Charlie? It's all out of date because there's a new one. I don't know how that ended up the norm of the industry. I think it's unfortunate. But my second tip for boosting web development productivity is steer clear from technologies that are getting rewritten frequently. If there's some technology out there that's awesome and it's great, that's fine, bless you. If you find that they are rewriting it all the time and coming out with new versions, I would not touch that technology. Now, unfortunately, finding a solution to that has not been easy. In fact, there is only one solution: to write your own framework, to write your own ecosystem. And that's exactly what I have done. It took me 2.5 years. The name of the framework is the Trongate Framework, and it hasn't been released yet. It comes out middle of December. And it's something that I'm kind of excited about, and I hope that people like it. But a framework is not gonna totally send you into warp speed. If you can think about web development as a production process, suddenly everything will change. For example, instead of, I need to learn how to code, and you're a coder, right? Think of it like this. Imagine that you own a car factory, let's say. How are you going to treat that? And think about all of the different things you do as a developer as parts of the production process. And ask yourself, how can I make it so that this thing is more robust, this stage, so it doesn't have any faults, right? How can I make it so that the production is really, really fast? And how can I make it so that I can repeat this over and over and over again? Oh, and by the way, how can I make it so that I can do this thing in such a way that it's really great and fast and everything, but it's also future-proof? So that if something comes out, then it can be quickly changed and we can move forward. Now that alone is going to take you into warp speed. I'll give you an example, right? So let's imagine that you're building a web page, right? Now you could go like this, for example, and then do a head section and some stuff here and a body section, and look at this. I even know things like Emmet, right? So you can do that, and where's the multiplication sign? Oh, there we go, right? That's cool, right? That was fast. And you can type. In fact, if you're really clever, you can find little shortcuts like this, and that's nice, right? Okay, fine. But let's imagine that if instead of thinking in terms of, well, I'm going to type it and I'm going to use a little plugin or something that might do a complete, think about it like a production process. So if you think about front-end development, there are certain things called front-end frameworks that developers like to use. Like here's Bootstrap, which is incredibly popular. Here's Milligram. This was used for the Speed Coding Academy website. So the idea with these is that, like, if I want a nice button like this purple button here, I can go to the docs, to buttons, and here's how you do a button in Milligram, right? So you would load up the front end framework and you would do something like that, and it would give me a nice purple button, right? Suppose I wanted a nice button for Bootstrap. This is another front end framework. So here are the buttons, right? So if I wanted, say, this blue button, I would copy this stuff here and I could do that. And provided I had loaded up the front end framework, then I can have the nice buttons, right? So we've got things like that. Here's Skeleton. It's another one that I quite like. It's quite simple. So the button for Skeleton looks like this. Let's just have a look at it actually. It looks like this, okay? And there's others. Here's Defiant, which is a really great front-end framework that was made by a member of Speed Coding Academy, Martin Masson, and I really, really like this one. But this has great buttons, and look how you do them, right? Now, notice that all of these buttons are different. Here's Materialize. This is the one that was backed by Google, okay? And I cannot even find the thing. Anyway, whatever. But the key point is, do you see how the syntax is different for all of these buttons, right? So that means that you're going to have to learn all of these different frameworks, these different front-end frameworks. And even if you're a fast typist, you're going to have to somehow remember the syntax for the particular buttons for the particular frameworks. Now, here's an idea. If instead of trying to be a typist and a memory genius, what if we did something intelligent? I'm going to show you a little software app that I made. It's really simple, in fact. It's really quite cool, and you can see what it does here. It's called Nitro, right? And the idea with Nitro is that you choose a framework that you want, say Bootstrap, right? Okay, so it's going to generate code for Bootstrap. And the idea is that if I want a button, then instead of typing all of that stuff, I can just do this. That's Bootstrap. Now suppose I want a button for milligram. Then I can select milligram and I can just go like this. And look how fast that was. Suppose I want an alternative button, something kind of fancy and something custom. I can go like this. And there's small buttons, large buttons, black buttons, you name it. So what just happened? Well, every keyboard, whether you're on a Mac, Windows or Linux, does not matter. We all have 3 keys here that are not doing much. I call them the trigger keys, right? So if you go like this, then we can add on a letter to signify the thing that we want. And without any thought or any fast typing, we can produce code incredibly quickly. So for example, I'm going to do that, right? Can you see my hand? So I'm just doing that. Now think about a button. What's the first letter of the word button? It's B, right? So if I just go B, there's my buttons for milligram. Now if I want to change a framework, let's say I'm going to switch to Materialize. Okay, so if I just go same thing again, I'm just going to do that and then B, right? And check it out. And there's the Materialize buttons. Now the alternative buttons, well, to get those, like the fancy ones, think about the next letter. It's U, okay? And the word button, U is the next letter. So for alternative buttons, I just do that. Now, I can go through an entire front end design with this simple technique that takes about 2 minutes to learn. And I can produce code probably faster than anyone on earth. So for example, let's have an informational page, you know? That was an I, right? How about if we go to Bootstrap again? Now, Bootstrap has got these really nice things. Well, look at this. Take this, for example. I have not even rehearsed this actually, but I think I'm looking at, this looks like a login form of some sort. Okay, so let's imagine we're doing a login form with Bootstrap. What's the first letter of the word login? It's L. There it is. Pretty cool, right? Suppose you want to do, I was trying to find one of those modal things. That's the things that pop up. They're really quite fancy. And I cannot even find it. But who cares? Because if I want one of those, well, I can do a basic page layout. And then I can find somewhere that makes me feel good. And I'm doing M for modal, and there it is. Nice little pop-up. So do you see how I'm producing code quickly, but I don't have to type at 1,000,000 miles an hour? That is speed coding. You know what I'm saying? It's not about sitting like that, typing like a maniac. I'm not a particularly fast typist. Now, by the way, please do not be too impressed with that software. That's not the point. The software is quite simple and it's no big deal. In fact, that particular little desktop app that I made, that is for a text editor called Sublime, which is not even the most popular text editor. The most popular one at the moment, text editor, is one called VS Code. And by the way, do you think I've done one with VS Code? Do you think that's what I'm going to show you? No, I'm not, because I don't use VS Code. Do you remember I said that this was made by a member of Speed Coding Academy? The biggest compliment that a guy like me can get is when members of Speed Coding Academy build really, really cool stuff. And just before I came on, I noticed that about an hour ago, Jake from Speed Coding Academy, he has just built and released his own extension for VS Code. And nothing makes me happier than to see people doing stuff like that. And that's the point. Don't dwell on the software or the frameworks or anything like that. The real value is learning how to build any app that any client can reasonably ask for, multiple times faster than the average developer. And the software is kind of irrelevant. I mean, If I get struck by lightning, people like Jake here, he would be able to just go on and, same with Simon, people like that, they'd be able to go on and put stuff together on their own. And that is the golden grail, in my opinion. Over at Speed Coding Academy, we are not a bunch of button pushers. What happens is I teach you the code, all of the code, and we start from ground zero. And then I encourage you to find ways of automating or even removing certain processes from your workflow. So when you come on board, we start off with HTML. I'm assuming that we are starting from ground zero, right? So it's hello world and all of that stuff. I think we do the first web page in under a minute, and it's just basic HTML. It's really, really easy. You won't have a problem with it. After that, we go on and we look at CSS. This is the technology that we use to make web pages look nice. And again, we start from ground zero, all of the basic stuff like changing font colors and what is a div and so on. And quite quickly, we go from there onto the more advanced stuff like the Flexbox system and the grid system. And by the time you've done those two modules, you'll be able to design really nice looking web pages. Then comes the good stuff. Module 3 is about PHP. Did you know that PHP powers 80% of the web? Now, some people say it's 82, some people might say it's 78. Let's just call it 80% plus or minus 2%. But whatever that exact number is, I'm calling it total domination. PHP is the dominant server-side technology. And if anyone out there thinks PHP is going away, you should go watch Steph Mishchuk. He did a video just the other day in which he was saying that PHP jobs are up 834% this year. I'm speaking to you in 2020. PHP is flying, and never let anyone tell you otherwise. After that, well, no PHP training would be complete without MySQL training, the most prolific database on the planet Earth. Then we're going to come back and do some advanced PHP. This is the really fancy stuff. Stuff like static functions and all of that. You know, the fancy stuff. The truth is, you want to know a secret? You don't really need all of that fancy stuff. And that's why on each and every lesson, I've added an essential-ometer. So if there's a lesson that's really important, it will have a high essential-ometer score. If there's something that's kind of nice to know, it will have a low essential-ometer score. Those of you who are in a hurry, you'll be able to go through this training and very quickly pick out the stuff that you need and leave out the stuff that's not essential. Another great time saver. Module number 6, security. We cover it all. Encryption, hashing, how to prevent SQL injection attacks. It's all here. And by the end of module 6, you're going to be a security, well, I won't say expert, that would not be accurate, but you're going to be good enough to go out there into the marketplace for sure. Module number 7. Then we start looking at frameworks. Now, a framework is really just a bunch of files and folders that have been created to make life easy. So we quickly go over some of the frameworks, and then I actually end up focusing most of that one on our own framework, which is the Trongate framework. I say our framework because without the backing of the Speed Coding Academy people, it would not have been created. So I'm going to teach you that, and you'll get that before it gets released. Remember, the framework does not come out until middle of December this year. Then, module 8, we're going to go into JavaScript. Just pure vanilla JavaScript. I love JavaScript. JavaScript is the technology with which you can build, finish the sentence, That's right, anything. With JavaScript, you can build web pages, mobile apps, desktop apps, browser extensions. I'm looking at not a Kindle, what are they called? Alexa things. Those. All of these things can be built with JavaScript. And we're going to cover JavaScript, and we're going to go quite deep. The training has, for example, what I think is the most advanced drag and drop menu system that I've seen in any course. We're going to cover all of that stuff with an emphasis on browser compatibility. And then there's other modules like how to go to warp speed, and a module called Launchpad, how to actually launch the site. I've just finished a module called Email Boss, in which I show you how to programmatically send emails and how to get past spam filters and all of that stuff. You know, every site that you build, if you're starting a business as a developer, you're going to launch the site and the client's going to say, what about my emails? So it's nice that we finally have a course that covers that as well. Now, after the basic training is done, we go on to the projects. If there is any course anywhere with a more extensive projects list than this, then I have not seen it. In fact, I have an entirely separate video. If you're on YouTube, I'll leave a link in the description. If you're on Speed Coding Academy, it's down the page, just scroll down, and it's about a 15-minute video where I go through the projects in some detail. And I have to say, it's a pretty mind-blowing list of stuff. I mean, to give you a few high points, you can see them on the screen here, some of them, but I have build your own WordPress, an online jewelry shop. This is the most advanced online jewelry shop or any online shop training on the web. I'm absolutely sure of it. On YouTube, the biggest web development tutorial series is one of mine called Build an Online Shop with CodeIgniter. It's 135 videos. It's on YouTube, right? This one is much better, much more advanced, much more modern. But because we're using speed coding techniques, we don't need 135 videos. And I've always said, if you can build a good online shop from scratch, then you can build any app that any client could reasonably ask for. Now, after that, well, you can build anything. So what do you want to do? Well, the next project is build a clone of Speed Coding Academy. And you do get to build Speed Coding Academy. So video streaming, payment gateways, signing up, the member system, the comments, it's all there. That's one of the projects. We have one, build a static site generator. Probably my favorite project. I'll let you see it when we get there though. We have machine learning covered. How cool is that? And we even have a project with a vehicle order system. This is very similar to the vehicle order system that gets used in Europe by most car manufacturers. I know, because I'm the guy who made it. I mean, the real one. I've actually done this for real, and it's nice to be able to teach people how these types of things work. Never in the history of web development has there been training like this, where people get shown everything from scratch, from hello to building large-scale, customized commercial applications. You take that car order system, for example. One of the endpoints for that, vehicle accessories, has got over 2 million rows. We are not talking about Mickey Mouse stuff. This is not doing a to-do list or anything. These are large-scale commercial applications. And I don't want to disrespect anyone, and I love all of the frameworks and the courses and everything, but I just cannot find anyone else teaching this type of stuff. More than that, I think it's not bragging to say that there is a difference between somebody who teaches web development and somebody who does web development. I am a commercial web developer. I'm not releasing another web development course ever. I love the industry too much. I'm too busy. Oh, before I go, each of the lessons, I should show you this. Each of the lessons has got a thing called, let me just show you. There's a thing here called Ask David. So if you ask a question here and you have a problem, something that you're stuck at, if you tick Ask David, that will send a message straight to my phone, and wherever I am, I will run to the nearest computer and I'll answer you within minutes. Again, as long as I'm not in bed, right? But again, another industry first. So what you waiting for, you crazy rock and roller? It's Speed Coding Academy. And remember, if you change your mind, have a look around, you don't think you're into it, it's fine. Bless you. You can have a refund, no questions asked. I hope to see you there. And someday, I hope that I can congratulate you on your incredible success.